This episode of the Switchcast was made possible by our benefactor for this week, Steve McLaughlin. He went over to patreon.com/theswitchcast and pledged his support, and you can too. All right, everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the Switchcast, a special Switch Topics episode. We are closing in on the Switch release, so we have a lot of excitement, a lot of energy built up, but we're not quite ready just yet to do the final news show before that hits. So we're doing a discussion topic today where we have one special guest joining us to talk about the last lingering questions, the uncertainty, the, dare I say, our final trepidations before the Switch is released.
Right. A lot of these questions will more than likely be answered once this console is out itself. But right now, pre-release, there are still a lot of questions we have here.
And joining us for this discussion today is our Switch Knight and a fellow podcaster as well, the Door-to-Door Geek, Steve McLaughlin.
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me on, and first and foremost, thank you very much for making a great Nintendo Switch podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We are happy. We are happy to oblige.
Right. It's pretty great. Steven's been a part of the community almost since day one, since we pulled the trigger on the Switchcast. So thanks for being around, and especially since you have experience with podcasting already, it was kind of a natural fit to have you join us on an episode here.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I do plenty of podcasts. At one point in time, 3 shows a week. Right now, I'm over 1,000 episodes.
You do a whole network of shows, don't you?
Yeah, a friend of mine started a podcasting network, and after 3 years, he said, I don't have the passion to do this anymore. I have just enough OCD in my blood to keep it going, so I took it over, and now it's like a disease I can't stop doing.
So I know of your Android apps podcast. What's that one called again?
Android App Addicts.
App Addicts, that's the one. Okay, that's the one I've listened to a couple episodes. It reminded me a little bit of my own Pocket Players podcast where we did portable gaming, and it was probably 70% mobile phone and iPhone type stuff. So, but Android was always the one thing I had no way to really cover. I don't have an Android, and I couldn't even get a co-host that, would own it. No, it's not your fault. You don't have, you're an iPhone guy. And even, when we had Adele on the show, he was another, iPhone guy. I just had so actually listening to what I could have been talking about on another podcast where they're dedicated to Android apps is it was just interesting and kind of fun. And you had a real fun group over there.
Oh yeah, we've been at it now over 400 episodes, and I will say, from my surveys I put out, over 20% of the listeners to that show don't even own an Android device.
Well, that's the thing. When you just have good chemistry and you have a good fun group to talk with, that's really all that matters. You could be talking about anything as long as it's a fun, chemistry in the group.
Well, yeah, and the beauty is now everything is almost at the same level, where apps that come out on iPhone come out on Android seemingly weeks later, and vice versa. The only people who are truly left out is the Windows users and the BlackBerry people who are the holdouts.
Yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. I remember there was a time when a couple of my friends were really touting the Windows Phone when the Windows Phone 7 was recently announced, and I felt like that was a bit of a doomed prospect.
Well, I mean, with the word Windows on it, its success would be against the odds.
Yes, that's a very diplomatic way of putting it. Though, speaking of really good chemistry, I was just wondering, how did you end up finding your co-hosts?
Well, I mean, Podnuts, PODNUTZ is the network that I have. It's really about finding local people to the network. So it's a community effort is the way I put it. we, I believe, have a higher rate of interaction than most other podcasts have, and it's because we try to go out of our way to literally answer every email. I make myself available on every platform, all times of the day. I literally said my phone number on multiple shows if people want to call me up.
Wow.
And it's really, it's like the cream rises to the top. I feel like the really passionate people contact me a lot, and then I literally just get to the point to where I say to them, if you ever want to do a show or be on a show, just let me know. And, like 1 out of 5 or 10 people pop at the opportunity, and then like 1 out of 10 of them turn out to really love doing podcast.
Yeah, that's a really amazing philosophy you have for your podcast. I know that's something relatively similar we're trying to do on our side.
Oh yeah, what you guys have going is right now, to me, elite, because the Discord community is by far the nicest group of people, supportive group of people, sharing information, helping each other, letting each other know about news dropping. I don't think a troll could survive in that community.
That's our goal. That's probably the nicest thing you could have said about it.
But it's definitely a nice community, and I feel like the philosophy that you put up on your own podcast community is really what we're going for on our side too. But though it's a little bit interesting, I don't think you really have much mention of Nintendo or the Switch on your website. What really brought you to the Nintendo Switch itself?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to sit on a couch and, talk about it, it all started, Doc, back when I was a young boy, and I remember having my first Nintendo Game & Watch. And
wow.
Yeah, I'm old. But I've always been a fan by the mentality of Nintendo Corporation. The reason I really don't want a Sony product, I really don't want an Xbox type product, is I know they're making so much money on other endeavors. They don't live and die by the sword, dare I say. Like in Japan, Nintendo, the honor of that company is in every product it makes. It has to try to do everything in its power to do the best possible product each and every time. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they are okay, and sometimes they do great things. And when I first started hearing the inklings about this system from a couple of my friends, I have 2 friends who manage retail game store outlets.
Right.
And they knew about how addicted I was to old school Nintendo, NES, even GameCube, N64, Wii, all of them. They told me that this is going to be the one that I'm going to literally go head over heels over.
Oh, it's really nice to hear, friends who understand your taste endorse something like this for you. So,
yeah, and I mean, all the presentation videos I watched, I, to be honest, half of them I wouldn't even have known about if I didn't follow you guys. Every single one of those videos I saw, my face started to hurt because I wouldn't stop smiling.
I actually finally just showed my wife, Dark Claw. I finally showed her the original trailer of the Switch, and nothing, like, she's extremely like a stoic, like,
yeah, she is.
Am I supposed to be impressed by that kind of thing? Even she was like, whoa, I believe she said, oh, that's cool. Like when she first saw it, like switch over to like portable mode. And then when they even showed the thing on the headrest and they were playing it in the backseat of the car, she was smiling too. Like she earnestly was, just taken in by the fun of this thing, and that was like the biggest whoa, okay, we're onto something here.
Okay, well, I'm just mildly creeped out, Casey. When did you marry my wife? Another short long story. My wife is I'm that guy. My wife is actually my old boss's daughter. And at one point in time he invited me to his house to play poker, and I took all of his money, but
poker with the boss,
yeah.
And then marrying the boss's daughter.
But like, here's the gimmick. Literally 14 years ago or something, I want to say about 14 years ago, I went over his house to play cards, and his 2 daughters were there, and I looked over my corner of my eye, and I saw them playing Ocarina of Time, and I was just like, oh yeah, and so I immediately just started winning money. It was like, and then I saw them, they were literally at the first boss in the Deku Tree, and they could not beat the spider. And I sat there in a corner watching them for half an hour, at least, just dying. And then the young one said to me, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. And she said, do you play video games? I said, sometimes. Little do they know, I spent, like 4 straight months of my life just burrowing through that game. So I knew how to literally kill Goma in 30 seconons.
That's amazing. Hold my beer. Let me take this.
So I just said, deal me out of this hand. And I went down and I explained to him, I said, look, you got to watch the eye. You got to use the Z targeting. You got to make sure you have the Deku seed. And bang, 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 killed. And the younger one, who was like 15 years old at that time, turned to me and said, he's a nerd.
Nerds.
And I was like,
oh no.
I was like, I kind of am. And then like a year later, basically started dating his daughter. And she's played like Wii U Mario Party games and Just Dance games, so she likes them, to be honest, to play with the kids. But actually playing games by herself, never. I mean, she plays Candy Crush on her phone, but that's about it.
That is a topic we should definitely make for a future episode. Couples games.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I mean, Valentine's Day just passed. I mean, like, if the Switch was out and we had more than snipper clips to discuss, I think that is definitely a topic we have to talk like date games or just games that like are great for couples like that.
Well, and dare I say, the Nintendo Switch is the combination and the evolution of all the Nintendo products that have ever existed in reality. The community gathering effort that the Wii had with people, I can see the Switch doing as well. Whether I walk up to an old friend, I can hand them a controller and then play, Mario Kart, or with my wife, 1-2 Switch. She'll think it's so goofy, she'd probably love it.
Yeah, and that's just something that's really fascinating about the Switch, and that we can all agree on. The Switch is definitely a culmination of everything Nintendo's learned in the past. And it may just be as successful as the Wii back in the day.
All right, we've gotten our energy up. We've talked about what we know and what we're excited about. But that's not what this episode's really about. What this episode is about, all the gaps we still have in our knowledge, and the questions, those little nagging concerns we have about the launch and about what we, just don't know yet of the system. So we're going to go over, everybody made a list of 5 of their concerns, and we're going to go through those lists, and we'll start with you, Steven, and if anything overlaps with one of us, we'll just, roll our question in with that there, and we'll go through everyone's in turn. Let's start with your first most minor concern, and we'll work our way up to, like, your biggest questions.
Okay, we all know, because of Nintendo history, how important it is for third-party support. That's what we have to have in order for this to be really, truly successful. But I do believe industries have changed a lot, even in the last 2 or 3 years. And could it be that the Nintendo Switch's success could actually be a result of third-party support, but not from the big guys, but from little indie developers that release superstar games on iOS or Android?
I think you're absolutely right there. The fact that games like Shovel Knight and Yooka-Laylee and even Has-Been Heroes, those are from indie development studios, and they're actually really hyping people for the Switch in an environment that's not really that's more conducive to them.
I think also I've come to learn as I've been doing this show, and I've gotten to know the Nintendo community deeper than I ever really have in the past, that they're just a different type of gamer, and they're definitely more inclined to get really hyped over title, because they don't necessarily need the $1 billion AAA budget games to get them excited. They much more inclined to be really hyped over a cheap, maybe like a $100,000 budget game that just has a really cool concept and does something, cute and charming. And that will get them hyped. And yeah, a game like Yooka-Laylee is a great example of that. It's not like a ridiculous budget game, but it's something that, and No More Heroes. I always tell you how I never realized, I would never have bet that there would be so much hype behind that game as there is, but people keep lining up to play it, and everyone I talk to is really like looking forward to that one.
You mean Has Been Heroes?
Has Been Heroes, sorry.
Yeah. And yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's definitely a testament to the Nintendo community as a whole. These are gamers who are used to games that aren't necessarily the most graphically strong or the most technically advanced, but they hold fun experiences that people love to play over and over. Mm-hmm. Indie games can provide that. Nintendo's been providing that for a while, and I think we've been primed with that mindset.
I personally believe somewhere around the 1 year mark, the big boy third-party developers are going to see the success that the small third-party developers are having on the Switch and almost pressure them and almost dare them to try to do better on the Switch. Because I'm a true believer, competition is what drives success.
Innovation.
Yeah, innovation, success, everything. So if these third-party developers that not everyone has heard of can come on the Switch and at least be successful, I'm not going to say be crazy successful, but at least be successful, the big boys are, I think, I don't want to say aren't going to have a choice, but if they're going to want to remain competitive to mass markets, because that's a real big difference. I don't want an Xbox 360 because I don't want 13-year-old snot kid, badmouth kids to crush me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want a more of a fun experience.
Right, and that's actually another really interesting point. This is going to be the first time these indie games will be available on a mobile platform. You know, imagine, I don't think Has Been Heroes or Yooka-Laylee would be available on a mobile platform if it wasn't for the Switch. So that's another element that they can take advantage of that they didn't have available to them in the past.
All right, so I want to move on to your next question there, Steve.
Okay, really quick. The reason this question to me is so important is because, at least for my kids, they seem to not go out as much as I did when I was younger. They don't seem to be as sociable when I was younger. Even though I had a horrible speech impediment and didn't really have a lot of friends, I still went out a lot, and my kids don't. So what I'm hoping is that social sites, whether it be Facebook events or meetup.com, and just for clarification, that's MEET, meetup.com.
Meetup.
Are there going to be, like, basically, dare I say, social events where basically homegrown tournaments can arise? Because we can connect up to eight of these things in a whack. You know, is it possible for us to have local events like spring up, like homegrown events and little tournaments? Because that alone is making me really seriously contemplate buying my 11-year-old a Switch just because it might drive him to communicate more with more people.
That's actually that's a great point to bring up, and I know you can speak to this considering how New York is such a hotbed of a local Nintendo community, Casey.
Well, I was going to say, you and I both, I mean, we're just of that mentality that we will, if there isn't a group for something like this, we would just start it, you know, like we have multiple Street Pass groups, and I don't even know what you do with a Street Pass group other than, I guess, exchange, you know, your Miis and
Street Passes.
Yeah, that's it. But I was like, they have a whole group dedicated to that, and I see it for a lot of big cities. They definitely, there's like Street Pass Boston. I'm sure there's a Street Pass Austin as well. As long as the games promote some, you know, and reward people who do play and socially. It's kind of like what I was talking about with CND when I was talking to him on the line outside the Nintendo store. He's really hyped about all the social games and just being able to meet with people in the park and play games like 1-2 Switch out and about. I think that, again, goes back to, this is definitely the type of, you know, the Nintendo fans is a type of community that really appeals to. People like me are definitely going to be running that. People like JV, I mean, our whole Switchcast site is going to be about fostering that kind of thing. I mean, that's why I still make board game groups. I want to meet people. I definitely like playing things face to face way more than I do like playing them online.
That's definitely interesting too, because the trend nowadays for console multiplayer games is online. There's not as much local multiplayer experiences being developed nowadays. But the fact that you can bring your Nintendo Switch with you and connect physically from one Switch to another anywhere means that there's an inherent local multiplayer focus to this console. With games that are normally tethered to an online multiplayer experience, like Splatoon 2, can now become a local multiplayer experience and a reason to physically gather with like-minded individuals.
Let me ask you, Steve, I'm curious, when's the last time you had friends over your house to play a multiplayer game together?
Ooh, man. Honestly, probably before 2000.
Yeah. It's something
that's been a while.
It's something that's kind of gone out of style. Maybe it's because we've gotten older and that's just, maybe it's something, just younger people do more, or I don't know, maybe it's just fallen out of favor because of online games. But I see the portability of this system being able to foster the ability to play those multiplayer games together again. But instead of having to bring your friends over to your house, which I don't think people do as much anymore, it's we're all in the city or we're all at work. Let's do a lunch cart party.
Yeah, because like back in the day, we used to have establishments set up literally just for LAN parties. And that's where,
right, exactly.
And that's where people would put their desktop computer in their backpack and their monitor, and carry it into a building to play games. Now we could have quote unquote LAN parties by pulling a switch out of our backpack. I mean, this to me is fascinating. And I don't want to say I don't care about esports, but I kind of don't care about esports. I would much rather see lounges basically spring up where they used to be like internet cafes. Well, now they're just lounges. You can come in, get a coffee, get a soda, watch TV in the background, and sit around and play Switch games in a local area network.
I just so wish that I was a college student when the Switch is out. Just imagine how much fun people would have gathering at a dorm house or at the library to play Switch games together. That seems like something that this console can really foster.
I'm sure PAX East is going to be crazy with it.
Oh yeah, and I have some immaturity. I'll say my wife reminds me of it all the time, but I can honestly see games like 1-2 Switch being huge in college dorms because there'll be a drinking game.
Oh, absolutely.
That's interesting.
That's one of the things that I thought about when I saw 1-2 Switch when it was first announced. I really thought it would make an excellent drinking game at college parties.
I had not thought about that. That is actually quite insightful.
Yeah, you lose, you drink. You lose, you drink. It's perfect.
The Switchcast does not endorse nor condone underage drinking. Play responsibly.
Well,
but overage drinking, go for it.
Right. And I just wanted to throw this out there, just a super quickie. Here's a pro tip. For you people who want to be true portable gamers with LAN parties and everything, you're going to need a device like what's called a RAV Power battery pack. It's like a portable phone charger. The difference is 99% of them cannot charge and discharge at the same time. So when you're at the right spot, if you have the right kind of charger, which like this one is, it's a RAV Power 1670 milliamp pack, you can charge and discharge at the same time. So you can keep playing nonstop while you fill up your portable battery pack.
You are speaking my language, Steve. Thank you so much for that.
Great. All right, next question.
Okay, the next one was, could we see hardware revisions, upgrades, minimal version release hardware upgrades in as little as like 18 months? Or do we even want to, or do we expect it?
So that's actually one of the questions that I had on my list as well, if we would see a hardware revision. This is something that I'm a little bit curious about, because I don't think they've really done hardware revisions for their consoles quite as often as they do for their handhelds.
Yeah, the handhelds, it's one of those things that almost it's to the point where it can be annoying depending on if it's a good revision. Like the DSi, all right, I don't care because that wasn't that cool, and I was willing to pass on that. The new 3DS kind of, I mean, I guess it took a long time for that to come out, but if that had come out like a year or two sooner, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed at the games that I couldn't play that were like only for it.
Right, and I don't remember there being such a revision of hardware on a console since, I guess, the Wii Mini. And even before then, it wasn't that often.
Yeah.
So this type of situation will really determine whether Nintendo sees this product as console, a home-based console, or a portable console.
Well, that would be interesting if they released a non-portable version of it that's just cheaper. That's just like...
Well, I'm mostly talking philosophy-wise.
Yeah.
If they do push out, hardware revisions more often, I feel like that they would be leaning towards a more portable-centric philosophy for them.
Right. I'll say I believe their portable hardware grants them so much experience that other manufacturers just don't have.
Yes.
I honestly think what they're going to do is hardware upgrade, yes, but not even frequently. And I think they're going to, first and foremost, they're going to try to ensure everything will be backwards compatible for some length of time. But I really do think in like 18 months or 24 months, they're going to release a version that's, and really I think for the hardcore user, all it's going to do is speed up the loading time, possibly higher resolution, which personally, the resolution's fine. It's acceptable. I have no qualms about that whatsoever. But I do believe you're going to have those hardcore people, like the people who bought that X1 Xbox controller that was like $150.
Yeah, the Elite controller.
I honestly think in 24 months or so, they might do something and call it Switch Pro or, Switch 2 or something where it's going to be...
Super Switch.
Yeah, but I don't know. And that's the whole thing. These are the kind of things I like to speculate about because I do believe they already have a lot mentally planned out that we have no idea where they're going to go. And I do think that they at least entertain the idea of in 2 years or so revving it.
I definitely agree. I think the possibility is there. I just don't know what the timeline would be. The appropriate timeline would be for something like a hardware revision.
Right.
Would it be 18, 20 months? Is that too soon? Should they wait at least 2 or 3 years after the Switch is announced or launched because it's a console as opposed to a handheld device? It's hard to say at this point, and I do believe the possibility is there, but
I think if it came out sooner than 2 years, it would be, personally, I would be very annoyed. I feel like after 2 years, I can't complain as much. So I think I personally think even from just a political standpoint or a PR standpoint, they'd have to wait at least 2 years before having any major new version of it available.
Yeah, and I do agree. Timing is the thing, because if it's too soon, people will complain. And speaking of complaining, the next question I have is...
Perfect.
I mean, I might be, I don't know, disconnected, out of touch with reality. My mom told me I'm special all the time, so I don't think I'm normal. But why are people complaining so viciously, I see? Is it just clickbait and they're not real? Or are people really complaining about the price of this Zelda Breath of the Wild DLC, which is only, and I say only $20, because I've spent more for a steak dinner.
Yes.
Than that.
I've noticed that a lot of the people who complained about the price of the DLC are of a certain age, and $20 seems like so much more to them.
I'm triggered.
It seems like $20 seems so much more to them than people of a certain tax bracket.
Well, I mean, but JV, I'm a government employee. I'm not getting paid a lot of money.
I don't think it's necessarily even that. Like, there's two ways. Like, I look at it mentally, like you're saying. Like, if I look at it in that way, it's like $20 for more Zelda, and some new content, as long as it's good, I'm fine with it. In fact, it's so weird because my brain is very hypocritical like this. I'm super wary when my emotions just tell me, $20, that's 1/3 of the price of the game. It better be 1/3 of the volume of the game. Otherwise, it's a ripoff to my head, right? That's the way my heart thinks about it. But when I look at like a tabletop game, when I look at board games, I realize I don't even get into one if I don't think it's going to have expansions. If it's not going to be a game that keeps giving me new ways to play it or new content, I'm almost like, nope, I don't want to bother even getting into this game. So I wonder why for this medium of like board games, I have to have DLC available. Otherwise the game's a waste of time. But when it comes to video games, my heart tells me that's wrong for some reason. I think it's just all emotional for some reason.
Well, to be fair, there have been a lot of scummy DLC practices in the past. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, and for example, Resident Evil, they've been known to withhold data that's on the disc.
Right.
Accessibility until you purchase DLC to access the data that you should already have available to you. EA, with the new Battlefront game that came out recently, they released a bare bones game that had barely anything in it, and they started releasing DLC for new content that really should have just been in the game in the first place. So a lot of this DLC wariness is frankly justified. But when it comes to Nintendo, it looks like the price for the DLC they're offering seems to be a fair amount, and what they're offering seems to be new content that's not locked down on the disc itself.
Yeah, one of my core beliefs is perspective is reality. So everyone's going to look at this different. Everyone's going to have their own experiences to base stuff off of. My logic is, there is no complete black and white. Everything is a shade of gray.
Right.
As long as a percentage of this content is content, I believe the only way I could experience otherwise is to wait 3 or 4 years for the next version of the game. Or in 6 months, I can get it as DLC. Oh, I'm going to always opt for the DLC. I mean, imagine if Majora's Mask came out as downloadable extra content to Ocarina of Time and it only cost $30. Instead of having to wait the time we waited, which I believe was about a year. I don't like waiting. And dare I say, the shareholders with Nintendo don't want to wait either. So
exactly.
I mean, as long as I feel like I'm getting something different, beyond a shirt, if it's a shirt and that's it, I'm going to be very upset. But it's not. It's going to be more stuff than that. And I truly believe it's going to be like a Master's Quest extension, which I also own the GameCube version of that.
The hard mode, the fact that they include a hard mode alone, that's one of the most enticing things to me, actually.
Well, on my side, they did specify that they were going to release story expansions and new dungeons, and that also has me intrigued as well. So
again, I guess for me personally, it depends on. It's originally coming out pretty soon after. I personally probably won't have beaten it by then, so it's not going to be interested to me then. But when I beat the game, if I still feel like maybe like 6 months down the line, if I'm like, you know what, I wish I had more Zelda to play, I say, oh, then it'll interest me. Then maybe then I might get into it. Some people are going to probably buy it right off the bat, though. Definitely.
Oh, I already pre-ordered mine.
Oh, well, there you go.
But okay, and here's the logic. I know I have rose-colored glasses. I know I'm looking at this company differently. I have blind faith to a certain degree, even though they've let me down in the past. They have let me down in the past.
Yep.
I mean, come on. All I gotta say is Virtual Boy or Power Glove, or it goes on and on. But I truly believe that they're going to do enough good stuff to make at least the majority of people not complain. But you're always going to have people complain. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, for Nintendo specifically, they've handled DLC quite well in the past. Mario Kart 8's DLC was priced pretty high on the high spectrum, but they gave you a lot of maps and a lot of new content. Same with Fire Emblem Awakening. They had paid DLC as well, and they gave you a lot of new maps. Smash Bros, they gave you new characters and new costumes, etc. And they were all justified for the price. And they were it was content that was released after the fact that couldn't have been pushed out within the core game itself.
Right.
So they have a good track record for paid DLC, and I don't think we should worry so much about this Breath of the Wild DLC just because they used the season pass label on it.
I think the only time you have a real basis to complain about it, and this is possibly true for Breath of the Wild, even though I'm leaning towards probably isn't. If you don't feel that you got $60 worth of content when you buy your copy of Zelda Breath of the Wild, if you don't feel you got $60 worth of content, then you can complain about the DLC. You could be like, well, that should have been part of there because I only felt I got $50 worth of content and now I have to pay $20 to get it back up to what it should have been. Then you can complain about it. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to get plenty of game in the core, and then you have this optional. Then it's a whole other decision whether you think $20 is worth what it's worth in that separate downloadable content.
Good point.
Right.
Good point.
All right. Your last question, I believe you're on too.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned the rose-colored glasses. I'll again be honest with you guys. I virtually cried at a point in that January 20th Zelda trailer that was released. It got me emotional. But that was almost in a good way. Okay?
That is good.
Right, but now here's the question. Because of my rose-colored glasses, am I just being blind to the fact that is there a possibility? Is there a real possibility? Is there an actual Vegas odd chance that Breath of the Wild will not only underwhelm us, but could actually disappoint us?
I believe there's always the possibility that any game can disappoint its fan base. But all we have to go with right now is Zelda's track record. And so far, they've been doing quite well with their main games. I can't really think of any 3D full-fledged Zelda game that disappointed to the level where people absolutely just hated it on a massive scale. So there's really no direct purpose to believe that Breath of the Wild would be any different.
I'm actually going to say something a little opposite of that. I believe their track record is, if anything, a reason to think there's a chance this could let people down because their track record follows a very set formula for the Zelda games in the past. They've all been successful because they've been a very specific type of game. This is a very different kind of game. And because of that, there's a chance people aren't looking for this or they aren't expecting this, just the freedom to go anywhere. I feel like there's a chance there's going to be a lot of people who are going to play this and be like, I don't know where I'm going. I can't even find the third dungeon. What is up with this game? I have to go on GameFAQs just to find. Like, there's a chance people just won't adapt to this. And that's going to frustrate them. And once they play it for like 10 hours and they're just, not adapting to it, that's probably the only big risk I see of people not enjoying the game.
The fair weather fan might not have watched all these trailers, might not have been following this as carefully, but still was excited about, there's a new Zelda game, I'll buy it. And then spend 2 hours cutting grass looking for hearts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do believe it is different enough. It's going to jar a certain percentage of the people playing this. But I can tell you, everything I've seen about it tells me it's in the typical Zelda fashion. It's going to take a certain amount of dedication to get past that first 10% of the game. Most Zelda games that I've played, at least, the first 10% of the game definitely requires some passion and some devotion to get over some of the hurdles. So, I think I'm going to be fine. But I don't want people to buy this game and say, I can't believe they took this out. I can't believe they took that out. What are they doing? They're stupid. They're stupid. They're stupid.
Well, yes, that's definitely, I definitely agree with you there. Though, if you think about it, they kind of explored the type of gameplay they're going to implement in Breath of the Wild in Link Between Worlds. Mm-hmm. If you remember, the new Link Between Worlds game had a bit more of an open dungeon system, and all of the weapons were available to you to rent in any order. So this type of philosophy has already been introduced into the Zelda franchise to many praises. So maybe Breath of the Wild is just an expansion of that idea.
I hope that's right. I always am worried that we're just evolving gamers. The way games, especially like mobile games, are very hand-holdy, and we've dumbed down a lot of games. Not necessarily console games though, but I'm just concerned. I don't think it's a real threat to Zelda, but I am concerned that we're going to hear, just some people who just aren't ready for it.
Well, I do believe that open world gaming has become just as much of a trend in console games as well.
That is true. It is a very big, like Minecraft type games are sprouting up more and more.
Open world. Final Fantasy 15's become fully open world. GTA, Grand Theft Auto's open world. A lot of racing games have explored the open world mechanic. I think that's a big aspect of gaming right now. And Breath of the Wild is Zelda's ascent into more modern gaming philosophies, while still retaining its classic Zelda feel and gameplay.
All right, we're moving on to the JV section of the questions. Those were excellent questions, by the way, Mr. Door-to-Door Geek. And
I don't think mine are as good as those, honestly. But yeah, we'll see. I'll definitely throw mine out there.
Here's my first question about the Switch is, will JV's questions be good enough for this podcast?
Anyway.
No pressure.
I don't know, guys. So, my question number 1 is, will the Nintendo Switch have the same battery issues that the NVIDIA Shield tablet had?
Ooh.
Yeah, so you guys know, obviously, we know at this point that the Nintendo Switch has a lot of the NVIDIA Shield hardware in it. Now, the problem is that the NVIDIA Shield tablet had to be recalled due to a lot of exploding battery issues. Is this type of issue also going to translate over to the Nintendo Switch?
Well, as long as it isn't Samsung Note 7
batteries.
Bad, I'll say I don't remember hearing multiple cases of actual exploding batteries. I do know defective batteries.
Right, defective batteries.
People had to send it back, kind of thing. I have to believe their quality control is going to be better.
Right, and that's where I feel I'm not as concerned about this situation as I could be. Nintendo has, a really, really strong QA team to QA their hardware. NVIDIA doesn't have that.
Right.
So Nintendo's expertise in this field will translate over and make sure that any NVIDIA offering will live up to those Nintendo standards.
Right. And I'll say the only bad thing is in our hyper-connected social world we live in today, all it's going to take is one person to have a battery issue, to go onto YouTube or Twitter or whatever and just rant and rave and complain for at least people to hear about it.
Right.
And then Forbes will do an article about, will your Nintendo Switch blow up your pants?
Right. So my real hope is if they do have issues that they react better than NVIDIA did and better than Samsung did and literally quell and squash and make those consumers utterly happy.
Right. And I feel like Nintendo will do that. I feel like they have the capability
Same
to do
here.
something
Well,
like that.
To me, I feel like they have to. And the example is the phone number on the back of the classic NES built in the 80s was still working up until like 2004.
Yeah, that's incredible. Nintendo as a Japanese company takes a lot of pride in the products that they put out there. It's part of their culture. It's part of their philosophy. And I believe that'll just help any issues that the NVIDIA hardware will provide. So
yeah, and I'll ad lib on your question. Could it have issues like the Xbox Red Ring of Death issue. You know what I mean? Those kind of companies, I don't think have the pride that Nintendo has.
Right. It's because of the point that you brought up earlier. Sony and Microsoft and even Nvidia, they have a wider array of products. If one aspect of their company fails, they still have another. With Nintendo, gaming's all they have, and gaming's what they dedicate their life to. So this is something that they just really need to focus on, and I believe they will.
Combining this actually with one of the previous concerns, I want to, you just brought something to mind though. Now, I've always said that the 3 to 6 hours is plenty of power for my average day to day, playing on the way to work, maybe playing on lunch, getting home, or, and charging while I'm at work. No problem. I don't need more than like 3 hours for that. But if we're going to have some of those social gatherings, like we mentioned earlier, that would require a little bit more intensive power use. If we're going to have those events, we're going to go meet somewhere in the park and play 1-2 Switch for a while, a 3-hour battery power isn't going to really cut it. So I am a little concerned that the battery might be the one thing that could hold back the face-to-face community, unless we had just lots of access to charging and battery packs and the sorts.
Oh, I'm not entirely too concerned about that. To be honest, the Nintendo Switch has relatively similar battery capacity and battery length that the 3DS has. So if those communities can thrive with the battery life of the 3DS, I'm not super concerned about the battery length for the Switch.
I'll say what you said is the reason I have concern. A couple years ago, I started to go to a lot more conferences and fly to Portland and fly to Cambridge and go all around. And I wanted a portable gaming solution. And my buddies who manage these stores kept telling me to get a 3DS or a 3DS XL. And then I knew my kid has a 3DS. And I was not at all happy with the battery life of that. So the device I actually bought, and I'll put a link at the bottom of the notes for you guys. It's called a GPD XD.
Ooh, okay.
Which is a very similar form factor to a 3DS, except it only has one screen, runs Android.
Yeah.
Out of the box. They encourage you, because it's not made in the U.S., to download all the pirated games you want and play them, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I get at least like 7 hours of battery off of that thing. And it has Wi-Fi, and it has Bluetooth, and it has controls, and it has touch screen, and it has a bigger screen than the 3DS kind of thing. I am to me, when I saw the device, I don't care about thickness, I don't care about thinness, I care about battery life. If I was them, I would have made the device a little bit thicker from what I've seen and tried to push that battery life up by at least another half an hour to an hour.
Right. And I can definitely agree with you there. If they could have sacrificed a little bit of the thinness for battery life, that would have been ideal for me.
The real reason why I think the Switch can be successful is, I have my Android show review 4,000 plus apps, many of them games. Games with physical controllers like this built in came off so much better, so much more seamless, so much more natural, just easier kind of thing. And there's no doubt the Switch is going to be better controllers and things. This is the real reason why I think the Switch is going to be successful. It's because they're learning from other people, they've learned from themselves. But I really wish that battery would have just been a little bit more.
All right, next question, JV.
So how will Nintendo handle a more modern online infrastructure? We don't really know that much about how their online system is going to work. I'm just curious. I'm really curious about how they're going to handle it.
Right.
Are they going the more Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus system where they're going to have a bunch of servers dedicated to their online infrastructure? Or are they going to go the more standard peer-to-peer connectivity situation that they've been doing for the past few consoles now? It's a question that I have. I want to know more about their online infrastructure. We're not really going to know anything about this for quite a while, so it's just a lingering question that we're not going to have answered for months, I believe.
Well, I mean, we'll know some of the, once we get our hands on it and we try it out. I mean, we'll have at least some idea with the launch titles of
right. Well, I have a feeling that since they already have the peer-to-peer type infrastructure ready from their past consoles, they're going to implement that on their first run of online games until they switch over to whatever modern online infrastructure they really want to push forward with.
Have you seen that the Splatoon event they're already they're throwing?
Yeah, I think so. And Splatoon had a P2P connectivity setup also, so it's really hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'll say I believe, and I know Pokemon is technically a different company and everything.
Yeah.
But I have to believe the hardship and trials and tribulations they went through with Pokemon Go and how their infrastructure had issues at time to time. I have to believe the knowledge that made that successful has to be passed back to Nintendo somehow.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I actually have faith that stuff like uptime and connectivity issues aren't going to be that big of an issue for the infrastructure speaking.
Right.
At least I hope.
Yeah.
That's assuming Niantic actually learned anything from their problems, because they don't seem to really evolve from lessons, just in my experience with their games.
Niantic specifically?
Yeah, they're not really good at learning lessons, basically.
Yeah, but Nintendo is the exact opposite. They're very good at taking what they've done in the past and improving on it, or learning from their past mistakes. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I do believe that this is something that Nintendo would probably be able to adapt with. And even within the console itself, with the Wii U, the Smash Bros. Wii U release had kind of a spotty, unreliable online infrastructure, but Mario Kart 8 ran quite smoothly online. So it was a later release, and I believe they're just learning their lessons as they go.
All right, next question.
How exactly will the Nintendo smartphone app integrate with the Switch itself?
Yeah, this is actually a really big one with me. I told you, I had, dreams, not that I think they'll do it, of just being able to literally launch games from the app itself and have it literally control your Switch to a degree. If I can even just get those alerts about who's playing, or, maybe even set reminders or group events. There are so many possibilities. Of course, I realize that maybe 1 out of 50 of these great possibilities will actually happen, but I feel like they do need a real hook, because there's a lot of skepticism about this mobile app, and if they don't do something that really makes people go, oh, that's awesome, I'm so glad this is a mobile app, that it's going to be one of those things that just haunts people for a while, haunts Nintendo for a while, and people are just going to gripe about, regardless of how functional it is.
Yeah, I'll say I think you're right, and the examples I use is how seamless things like a Chromecast can work. I have multiple Android devices too, including genuine Android laptops, Android tablets, Android phones, and everything. And some of the apps work so seamlessly where I push something on one device and something else happens on another device. I know there's little doubt that it's possible that on your Android or iOS device, you can get an invitation and say, hey, JV is getting ready to play Splatoon. Do you want to join him? He put out an invite to his group. And I can literally click one button, and in 3 to 5 seconds, with my Switch being online, it will say, because I've already authenticated it, I've already made the connection, and it just, boom, starts to launch the game.
Yeah, yeah.
If it does that, oh my goodness, is it going to be easy to do this interaction kind of thing. And I don't want to say they need to do it that way, but if they don't, it's going to be almost a hardship to get this kind of stuff done.
Right. And the fact that they made such a big deal about this smartphone app makes me more confident that they would integrate these features into it. We just really need to know more about this app. and what it can do.
It's a very
something
big,
that
it's one of the biggest question marks, period.
Well,
right.
The best thing about the app is, at least on my devices, I've seen newer apps on my device literally get updates every day for 2 weeks while they're constantly refining, improving, adding features, adding functionality. So I don't doubt the app will be able to do it. The question is how quick we'll be able to. Day one, I don't think it's going to be able to do this kind of functionality, but I really hope by the time some of these more popular network type games come out that it will.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like the fact that they're making it a smartphone app means that they'd be able to iterate it more quickly.
Yeah.
As you mentioned,
Well,
I think the iterations will come more quickly than it could have been.
Well, it's both that and, to be honest, as a developer cost, it has to be cheaper to hire developers for Android and iOS than it does Nintendo developers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can definitely agree with you there. There's so much more. There's so much talent out there for smartphone app development that they can tap. So it's a good call.
All right, so it looks like your fifth question is something that we covered. Yes, it was the hardware revision question we talked about already. So why don't we just skip over that and we'll move on to my list now. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, here come the awesomest questions. No.
Oh, yeah, Casey. Yeah. Oh, the best questions of them all.
Well, my first question, following the trend of all our online topics here, I'm really curious what the online community is going to be like. Like, are we going to be able to actually talk with them? Are we going to find out that it's like Xbox Live and there's a ton of horrible, horrible people talking to me while I'm playing Splatoon? Or will Nintendo really clamp down as usual on that level of interactivity and keep it like very sterile and safe? I kind of want to be able to interact with people. I do trust the Nintendo community to not be horrible people, so I want to kind of interact with them more. And I obviously, I'll benefit from some blocking options here and there, but I really want to know how open they're going to make it and how much of this community I'm going to be able to engage with.
I believe there's already word that voice chat will only be allowed for lobbies you create, and you can only voice chat with friends. So there might be that limitation, but we don't know for sure yet.
And I have to believe, again, the current social networks that exist, all it takes is people in those communities and networks to know and understand what this network does good or right or wrong about interactions and blocking. I don't think it's a secret sauce. I don't think it's really complex. I think it's just a simple, not like Twitter, where when you block somebody, all your friends can still see them kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What I really want to see is something like we have a Switchcast community. I'm in that Switchcast community. Merrick Gamer finds somebody and they turn out to be a horrible person. If he blocks them, then it's effective for everyone else in that community.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah,
this
is the kind of trust relationships that I hope that they understand. Like, even if it's just me and my kid is in a group, if I block somebody, I don't want my kid to accidentally stumble across them either.
Right.
Blocking is a very, very vital feature, and I'll say voice chats are going to be necessary, because if they don't do it, we're going to have either people on their phones using Skype, using Mumble, using Google Hangouts, using FaceTime, or whatever they have to do to fill that gap. If I'm Nintendo, I'd much rather have people in my network. If that means we do a deal with Microsoft and we have Skype integrated in our mobile phone apps, fine, I don't care. But to me, it needs to be in that app.
Right, and I believe that's the direction that they're going with this. So I wouldn't be surprised if they integrate some sort of Skype-like mechanism within their smartphone app to support this type of functionality. But yeah, I do agree with you that those community features should be in place, and it would be great. And I suspect that it would be a possibility, especially considering how customizable the parental controls are now. They might feel more comfortable opening up people to possibly experience and interact with strangers more readily than they have in the past.
Mm. My second question is pretty simple and straightforward. Will people use it portably? Will they actually take it out of their house and use this very basic feature of the system? It's a very defining feature, because I'm worried that if people don't do that, if it doesn't actually get out of the house and get it out there and people play it, out and about and start teaming up with people at work and stuff, it's going to end up just being known as a subpar home console. If it only gets used as that by 90% of people, that's the reputation I feel that it's going to get. This whole portable feature of it would be meaningless, and therefore it would just hurt the system overall if people don't feel either comfortable, they don't feel the need to take it out, or they just forget, oh yeah, I could take this out with me. Or maybe some people might feel that it's not small enough to bring with them outside all the time. These sort of things I worry about could hurt the system if it goes that way.
I think that's kind of a fair concern, though I don't suspect that the portability will be forgotten. The fact that it's being pushed so hard by Nintendo to be a portable console as well as a home console, I don't think that's something that people are going to forget so easily. And even if they do, even if a certain subsection of the gaming community only uses the Switch as a home console, there's going to be some people out there that use it only as a portable console, or use it more frequently as a portable console than a home console. So the fact that those portable users exist will mean that feature won't be forgotten.
Yeah, I'll say your text question versus how you audible the question. Wow, you added some depth there, brother. Good job. Because I think there is definite validity to people becoming complacent with just leaving it in the dock the whole time. I do believe that's a possibility. Personally, though, I'll say this: I'm married. The wife, it's basically her TV.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have no choice but to play it in portable mode or tabletop mode a good high percentage of the time. I do believe we're literally going to have people that literally 90+% of the time just leave it in the dock, and then 90% of the time out of the dock, and a few people in the middle doing both.
Yeah. And honestly, the fact that there are some people that'll be mostly portable and some people that are mostly docked, I think that's going to be a decent enough balance where there shouldn't be a concern that functionality will be forgotten.
Yeah, and dare I say, the best, I think, feature about the portability is other people seeing you play it. I literally can picture walking into either Outback with the family and friends and literally walking past to be seated and seeing 2 or 3 kids in there playing a Switch, or an adult like me playing the Switch.
Right.
and literally drawing questions, and then, having like the wife turning to the husband and say, why don't you bring yours out?
You know what I feel like it would be nice if it did have, I never thought I never thought I'd be missing a Street Pass feature, because it is one of those things that was really cool novelty for a while but kind of faded. I do feel like, though, in the case of the Switch, some sort of functionality like that while it's out and about would be cool, only in that it would help encourage people to say, oh, you know what, let me grab this and bring this with me for my jog today, or for, my trip to my aunt's, because while I'm out, it's gonna pass around and, I'll get some more Miis or whatever, picarats it gives you for taking it on the go. Just something like that to give people a little extra nudge to take it with them.
Right. Well, while I agree with you, it would be cool to have a Street Pass-like feature, I don't feel like it's necessary. The fact that the games are console games that you can play outside and about would be enough to draw attention and to get that interaction that you're talking about.
But you reminded me, Steve, about just the fact that it doesn't actually have to leave the house to be useful portably. Just the idea of my wife's using the TV, I'm going to go in the bedroom and take it with me. That's enough portability for it to be worthwhile for a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, and to speak real, there's a certain percentage of the people who are going to use it a lot when they're in the bathroom.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah,
fair.
That's why it was the beginning of that commercial they showed.
Yeah. And to be honest, nothing would tickle me more than to because if you go to places like Buffalo Wild Wings, which is sports bar / restaurant,
Yep.
they give you these pads where you can play trivia games against other people in the restaurant. I would love to have my kid be able to be sitting there playing like a Mario Kart type game and have a random encounter, there's people around me playing it, and then my son turned to me saying, "Hey, Dad, I just beat these 3 guys in a race."
Yeah,
high five.
Right, and I honestly think that would be possible with the Switch. That doesn't seem like a feature that would be so infeasible. You can also implement that type of functionality on a fighting game like Street Fighter, or if someone's playing it, you can just join them wirelessly.
Then right, and with that kind of encounter, dare I say, I almost don't want voice chat.
Yeah, I think, especially with the local situation, I think you're right with not including voice chat for that.
All right. My next question is actually probably one of my most minor concerns. Is I'm curious if they're going to try to capture any of the mobile game market with the Switch. I only say this because it is such a lucrative market that I feel that they could benefit from. And they've been making a lot of really interesting free-to-play games lately. Like JV and I have been playing the heck out of Fire Emblem Heroes the last couple of weeks. And Super Mario Run did really huge. They have the potential to release games like that on the Switch. And I think that it could be an interesting market for them to expand to. I don't necessarily see them doing it. I know they dabbled with that on the 3DS with a few things like the Pokemon little dolls game, and that sort of thing. Rumble. I would like to see them do that only because I think it's a really good business move for them, and that ensuring success ensures the Switch thrives. But I'm just curious if they'll do it and if they'll do it right.
The fact that the Switch has really strong support for the Unreal Engine and Unity, those are very big, very, very big mobile platform engines. So we've been hearing word from developers that it's easy to port games over to the Switch. So it's not unlikely that those free-to-play developers will just bring their stuff over to the Switch and make money from that.
My next one's a little bit more of a serious one, though. Will developers accept the Joy-Con and what it can do? Because I'm concerned that over time they might just stop doing cool, like when the Wii came out, or even the Wii U. I feel like early on, developers, mostly even Nintendo itself, they do really cool, clever things. They utilize every little bit of their cool controllers, and then over time, they just kind of stop. Or like with the 3D on the 3DS. Early on, it was a big deal. Every game had some weird utilization of it, but then over time, people, maybe because people weren't as interested in it, but it just kind of went by the wayside and it got forgotten. And I don't want to see that happen to the Joy-Cons because they're so cool and they do so much. I don't want to see it just become a controller.
Yeah, in all realism, I feel like I feel like it's going to be the same here. The Joy-Con is definitely really cool. It has a lot of interesting features. But I don't know if people are going to be super inspired to develop for it outside of Nintendo themselves. Now, it's not to say that Nintendo should have just skipped including those features in the Joy-Con, because that functionality opens up Nintendo's opportunities to develop cool software. But I don't know how inspired the third-party developers would be to implement Joy-Con functionality in their games.
as long as they at least support the ability to like split them into like the two one-player controllers to support more multiplayer options, I feel like that's at least the safest bet for them to do.
And yeah, I think the sharing the joy mode is pretty basic. It's basic enough that I think most developers would be able to support something like that. But the 3D rumble features and the IR features, I don't know how
even just the motion, just the waggle controls, just so, like I liked a little bit of like I'm probably the only person who played No More Heroes, actually mean it this time, not the other one. I am one of the few people who actually used the Wiimote and swung it and used it for swinging attack mode instead of just like button attack modes, because I don't know, I just got into it and it felt right.
I don't know. Let's just the track record. That's all we can really go for.
Yeah.
Just looking at Nintendo's track record, the third party developers ditch those extra quote unquote gimmick features relatively quickly, or at least later on in the lifespan of the console.
Because I don't want to buy a Pro controller. At least I don't want to buy it for a long time. I don't want to. Anyway, the final
I'll buy one day one.
Yes. The final question and my final concern, and probably the biggest concern I have, because it will really determine, well, literally it's the biggest determiner if it's success and we all can enjoy this for a long time or not. Will it sell? Will people, I mean, obviously we're in, it's hard for us to judge because we're in an echo chamber. We're surrounded by nothing but hardcore fans who are all joining our community because they love it, and it's a great, large community, and I feel a lot of energy for it. But it's possible this thing isn't as hyped as we feel it is, and there's a part of me in the back of my head that's like, it better sell. People better buy every copy, every model that comes out, and it better be super successful. I want to be able to go anywhere in the world and find people to play with, because that is the perfect gaming world for me. And if it doesn't sell, I'm going to be devastated if it becomes a Wii U situation.
I feel like it actually will sell. There's So far the reaction of the Switch from non-gamers has been very positive. And that's something that the Wii U just did not have.
Yeah, it's true.
The excitement for the Switch, it almost seems like a resurgence of the Wii's excitement.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely the same energy.
Yeah, it has mass appeal. People who aren't normally gamers can see the appeal of this new console because it can fit into their lifestyle and be just what they need. The fact that pre-orders have been very, very sought after is also a good sign. The fact that, it's hard to get a pre-order right now, and it seems like there were a lot of pre-orders available. That's a good sign that the demand for this console is real. I can't really see how the Switch will fail at this point.
I don't believe it will, but there's just that part of me that's afraid of what will happen if it doesn't do phenomenally. And that's it. I'm going to be watching the sales numbers as closely as I can, and I hope everybody, especially everyone who's listening to this show, gets theirs. And everyone in the world can share in this. Like everything, half the stuff we've talked about here is in the community. Playing with people online, playing with people in person, having a fun time with friends. That's all possible because people buy it.
Successful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
If this console isn't successful, then there won't be as many people to play with. There won't be as many people to grow the community, and it won't be quite as expansive as we'd like.
Right.
But all signs are pointing to the fact that the Switch is going to be a strong contender.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can definitely be optimistic about it. There's no real reason to fear the failure of a Switch.
Yeah. And if anyone's curious why door to door Geek has
Steve?
been quiet. Yeah, why Steve has been quiet lately. He went to clean up some baby puke, and so he had to step out for a little bit. But we'll see. We hope he'll rejoin us for the next segment. We're going to switch in, and now we're going to try to address your listener questions that you've had and you've sent us in regarding the Switch. And let's shift gears into I guess we'll call it the community pulse.
And Steve, you're a trooper having to deal with your son's puke.
Yes.
So Marco Perez sent us a message. I'm curious if I'm alone in thinking that the backlash surrounding Zelda Breath of the Wild and its recently announced DLC prices at $20 is completely nonsensical. DLC is a normal practice at this point and can add great value to a game if it's done right. Not to mention $20 is on the light side as far as price is concerned. What are your thoughts, KC and JV, on the subject? We've gone over this relatively throughout this episode, and at this point we do feel like the DLC is justified so far. Casey brought up earlier that if you feel like $60 you didn't get your $60 worth of game from the core Breath of the Wild game, then perhaps the DLC complaint is justified. But at this point, all signs are pointing to a worthwhile DLC season pass. I just wanted to bring that up because there's a lot of backlash. There's a lot of concern. I read an article that said that this DLC is a spit in the face of Nintendo fans, and I feel like it's a bit much.
Yeah, like I said, if it's worth it to you, that's it. You just got to value everything at what it costs you. If Zelda costs you $60 and you feel you got $60 worth of content, nothing else matters. If it's $20, if you feel like that expansion isn't $20 worth of content, then don't buy it. If it is, then you want to buy it, and it's
optional.
That's it. It's optional.
It's optional.
We have to break this thing out of our head, and I have it. I admit it. I'm not condemning anyone who thinks this way. I totally get it. But yeah, we have to get out of this mentality that we just feel that we have to have everything or we have nothing. And that's just it's part of our human mentality, I feel like. I feel like a lot of us, if you don't have everything that is in the Zelda game, you feel like you don't have anything. You have nothing. You don't have the full game. And that angers parts of our brain. And it's just something that I think you have to get over because it's just the way things are now. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a good that they have an incentive to make more than a full game. They have enough to make a full game that you'll love. And if you love it enough to don't want to stop playing it, then they're going to keep making expansions for you to play it for another 10 years.
Right, and I don't want this to come off as us being fanboys and defending Nintendo for this practice. This is definitely not the case. If the price was too high, or if the DLC they promised was too skim, then we would definitely be on the complaining side, on the criticism side.
I've almost never bought an expansion pack to anything. I've bought it for Gravity Rush. That's the last time I bought an expansion pack. That's how wary I am of this stuff. And I was actually kind of ticked because I felt like they didn't give me enough missions for the $10.
For Gravity Rush?
Yeah, Gravity Rush had expansion packs, and it was $10 for 2 missions and a new costume. And I felt a little let down by that, actually. Because I measured it against what the full game was. For $50, I got 50 missions. I feel like $10, I should get 5 missions,
Right. And so far, it seems like Nintendo's striking a balance with this specific season pass. but we'll see. We don't know yet, but so far it looks like everything is going in the right direction.
Peter J. Ortiz, he wrote us, and this is actually a really popular question. Do you think there will be a virtual console at launch? I think that, and a lot of people are curious because, that's just a great library of games to dive right into from the launch. I mean, sure, there's going to be some, big games to buy with it, but once you have that virtual console, that's just an easy way to just download and start playing some classics right off the bat. I think
and especially on the go.
Right, exactly. And I think there will be. I think that's going to be there. I just think that they haven't done a great job of communicating everything that's going to be there. I think that there'll be virtual console at launch. Do you think not?
This might be a bet, Casey.
Yeah, all right, I'll go for this one.
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to have a virtual console at launch. I feel like that's not their main priority during their launch day. And while there's already talk about a virtual console direct or some sort of video that's going to come out before the launch, it's 2 weeks in. We're 2 weeks until the launch day, and we still haven't heard anything about it. So I suspect there won't be anything immediately.
Okay, I think, all right, I'll go for it.
You want to go for it? Is this going to be another bet?
Yeah, well, I'll bite, because you know what? I can't be 100% sure on everything I go for. I think that there'll be at least something. It might not be like the GameCube, but I think, there'll be at least like a couple of NES games for you to download and play when it comes out.
I feel like they're going to do a slightly bigger push for the virtual console a little bit later, maybe later in the month, but not during launch. I think
there'll be a push later, but there's going to be something. There's going to be something when it comes out, because it's money on the table. When you have that system, there's got to be something for you to just download and give them money for, while it's sitting in your house. And I don't think they want to miss 1 hour where people are going to impulse buy Mario Brothers for $10.
Yeah, I can see that. But oh man, I feel really bad because all of my bets have been on the pessimistic side, and I'm usually not that person between us.
Let's go for it. Let's see. Let's hope this one turns it around for you.
Yeah, well, I
guess everyone listening's hoping you lose. So
yeah, thanks, guys.
It's your fault for taking the evil side.
Well, someone's got to do it.
Uh-huh.
All right. So there's Chuy Huerta had a interesting comment. My biggest concern is Nintendo's hesitation to embracing the Switch as a handheld console. And by hesitation, I mean their marketing focused on establishing it as a home console. I really want to see them push it as a hybrid console.
That's exactly what I was talking about before, basically. I mean, one of my questions was, will people actually use it portably? And, that's basically what he's saying. Like they market it, focusing it as a home console. And, if people don't also use it as a portable, then it's going to be missing out a large part of the, everything we said, community. And
I don't know. Because I felt like their marketing has shown a lot of portable focus as well.
I will disagree with what he says. I agree with you that they have focused on the portability.
Have you seen a lot of their marketing material, Steve?
I've seen, I think, as much as they've released, and they've definitely attempted to push it as a hybrid. I don't know if it's going to catch, though.
Like, from my perspective, it seems like they've shown a lot of people bring their Switch out, but they also want to emphasize that this is a home console that you can bring with you to go. They don't want people to forget that it's a home console so that they don't pigeonhole it into the Switch or into the same space as the 3DS. But
I mean, just look at how they portrayed the Super Bowl commercial. It starts off in portable mode. He's playing it in bed or as soon as he wakes up, and then the big reveal is, oh, it also goes on your TV, and then the music kicks up. that's how they sold it. They showed you it first as a handheld, that connected to a TV, and that was the twist. Almost the opposite of the originally, where we saw the first trailer where he's playing it as a home console, and then he takes it to go, and that's the big twist. I mean, they've focused on that switching gears.
Right. I think they've had a pretty good balance about it so far, though I do want to say, Chewy, that this is a valid concern. We definitely want to see Nintendo balance their marketing material for both.
Yeah, if they focus their material as hard on the hybrid solution as they did on the sound of that Switch sound, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah,
Click. It's so satisfying.
It is.
All right, so let's do Anthony Talkett's question.
Okay.
The battery is the only thing that worries me. What happens when they enable Netflix and other apps that will drain more battery? We definitely went over this, and Steve, this is one of your biggest concerns as well. The battery.
Yeah, and I'll say I watched like entire seasons of Silicon Valley and stuff on portable devices, and I don't know if it's the screen changing. I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi usage, but something definitely shortens the battery life compared to doing normal things. It better be able to last a full movie on Netflix on a single charge, or else people will, I think, freak out.
I feel like it can. It seems like most games would fall under the 4 to 5 hour range of battery life. The Breath of the Wild itself is about 2.5 to 3 because of how intensive it is. But playing videos shouldn't be that difficult.
Well, yeah, and I have to believe Netflix, Hulu, all of them are truly, secondary is giving them too much credit. I really think of them as a tertiary function. I don't see people even spending, most people spending more than an hour a month watching stuff.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's hard to say. But
I used to be really hyped when I first got my Vita because that was the biggest screen I had in a portable device, and I would watch Netflix on that for a while. But then we started getting tablets, so whenever we want to watch TV in bed, it's the tablet or the Kindle or something like that. And ever since that became it, I've never used any of the streaming options on any of my other devices, because if I'm on the go, I'm playing games, and if I'm watching any kind of video, I'm probably at home, so I have other options. So it's never been an issue for me.
Yeah, and I do believe the best thing is we have so many options to watch it now.
Right.
That I even if it is an issue for people, I still don't think it's going to be an issue because they will have other devices to watch it on.
Exactly.
I feel like all the questions that they've asked have really overlapped well with everything that we've talked about. I was also going to say that I don't know if I see any of the questions here, even looking at the Facebook now, that are not something we've already directly addressed.
Well, that just tells me you have really smart people in your community.
Including yourself, Steve. Thank you for joining.
Well, that just went without saying.
Now, I do want to bring up one last question. It's really simple, and from Telmatic. What have you two pre-ordered? And Steve, this includes you. Are you going for blue and red or gray? Pro controller? What else?
I personally say he's missed the most important one.
Which one?
I truly believe it's going to take no time at all for people to realize the LAN adapter is going to be critical.
Yes.
Being a podcaster and streaming content, no Wi-Fi in the world can keep up with a wired connection for stability and the amount of throughput. So the first thing I did was I pre-ordered the Hori LAN adapter just because I'm going to need every advantage I can get to beat JV in some of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe the LAN adapter is going to be very important with this upcoming console. I don't know how their Wi-Fi chip is going to hold up to console gaming.
And okay, what about you, JV? So what did you pre-order and plan to buy?
So you know me, I'm the type of person that pre-orders a ton of stuff. So I pre-ordered the Switch, the gray. I got the pre-order for the Pro Controller. I also got the pre-order for a second dock, and I pre-ordered a second pair of Joy-Con.
Well, that's a second dock right off the bat, huh?
Yep.
All right, fair enough. That's it. If you got a use for that, that's awesome. Really like that. That's going to really open up your options for fun at home.
Yes, I do love me some options.
I'm personally, I just got the gray core system. I don't see myself needing any of the accessories for at least not a while. But I just got the gray and Zelda, and I will determine what I want to have thereafter. Basically, if I want a Pro Controller, I'm going to see if I get tired of the Switch Joy-Cons. Maybe I'll start playing like the first Monster Hunter type game, or I'll start playing like Fire Emblem Warriors, and I'll be like, oh no, I really want a Pro Controller. It's possible. I doubt it, but I really don't buy anything unless I'm really sure it's an investment that's worth it for me. So yeah, just the thing, and I'll be more than happy with one game. And hopefully if I win the bet, there'll be virtual console games for me to download as an option.
Yeah, I don't think you were here for that, Steve.
But I do know his bets are. He's a really safe bettor. I'll say I did pre-order a couple games, at least 3 games I know of. I did also pre-order. I want to say it was the second set of Joy-Cons just because of my kids.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I'll say this: the Pro Controller to me, I don't see me ever getting. Hori is going to release a wired controller that looks to be an identical clone hardware-wise, except it's wired.
Interesting.
And it's literally like half the price.
Yeah, so that's probably worth it, because you're only really going to have the Pro Controller during home console dock mode anyway, so it being wired is fine.
Right, and the other thing I'm really tempted to buy, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet, is D brand skins.
Oh, same here.
Right. Those are awesome looking.
Those skins look incredible. And I did get the gray console because I thought the blue and red looked really tacky until I saw it in person, and I thought the blue and red looked amazing in person. The D brand skins made me feel a bit better about my gray pre-order, because I think the uniform gray color would look better with a skin on it.
Sure. They've been doing phones for a while. To me, they're very fairly priced. For the whole kit, I want to say it was less than $20 for all the total skins.
Oh, wow.
But I don't see me like the needing to skin the dock.
Yeah.
And like the only thing I'm sure of is I'm not going to go for gold, and I'm not going for wood.
Yeah.
You don't want the
mahogany.
Yeah, mahogany Switch.
No, more than likely just because of Podnuts. Podnuts is green, so
that's your company colors.
Gotcha. That's fair. Yeah, and honestly, I think it'll be a lot of fun. When the Switch comes out, I would definitely want to set up a picture share within the Facebook community so that everyone can take a picture of their skinned Switches.
And on that colorful note, I believe it's time for us to bring this show to a close. So thank you very much, Steve, for coming on. It was a blast talking with you about all this stuff. Sorry you had to stop to clean up puke.
A whole lot of puke.
Dad issues.
Trust me when I say I'm honored that you guys asked me to come on, and you really have no idea how much you've allowed my mental stuff to just release, because I typically don't have people to talk about this topic with, and when I do, they just like roll their eyes like, you're such a nerd.
The only reason I have this podcast is so I can talk and get it off my head instead of just forcing my wife to listen to me. But yes, if anyone else out there, you enjoyed the show and you want to give us some support, the easiest way is to go over to iTunes and leave us a rating over there. 5 stars preferred, but whatever you feel honest, whatever your conscience tells you, go right ahead.
Hopefully your conscience tells you 5 stars.
Right, yes. If you really want to give us some support, though, you can visit us at patreon.com/theswitchcast, and that is where you can pledge your support. As little as $1 a month really does go a long way in, you know, keeping the lights on and helping us make this show even better. So seriously, if you like us, check that out. Of course, if you just want to have some fun, you could follow us on Facebook at The Switchcast, and we have the Facebook group. Links to that in the show notes. And you can leave us a voicemail, actually, if you just want to say switch it up for us, or if you have a question you want us to air. You just give us a call, 317-POD-CHAT. And those voicemails, I listen to them all. And thank you, everybody who's sent us those, even if I didn't use them on the show yet. That's pretty much it. So until next time, everybody,
switch it up.